Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Play The Path. We are now on part 20, I believe. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what we saw happen in the last video. So if my mouse would stop lagging, and if you do not know what happened in the last video, if you do not know what happened to the girl who was holding this hat next to the window, if you do not know what became of Carmen, please close your video now and watch parts 17 through 19. Or if you already know who Carmen is and you would just like to find out what happens to Carmen, watch part 19, which is the very last episode. So I wanted to make some comments about this because when I saw what happened, I was completely fucking clueless. I had no idea what was going on. All I had was the kind of instinctual reaction that I assumed the developers intended, but not really an understanding of why I felt that way or how they did it. So starting with the facts, basically, and again, if you haven't seen what happened, stop now because I'm about to go on. Alright, so we entered the campsite, and from what we learned before that, Carmen was kind of a flirtatious girl. That's the impression that I got. She was always thinking about romance, and she was also a bit on the wild side with the partying and the very coy kind of flirty personality. But on the other hand, she was kind of idealistically romantic, in my opinion, because she mentioned a couple times things like, oh, carving a heart onto a tree, but whose initials will be inside? And so it kind of seemed like she was looking... Oh, and then the one thing she said that man and woman were once one and they travel the world looking for their other half, which sounded like a really, like a nice kind of romantic. And so... Carmen is now 17, and that's really the impression that I got from her personality, was that there's actually two sides. And the one side was the young, kind of naive girl who's grown to a woman now and is starting to enter in this game, an adult game. A dangerous game it could be if you didn't know the rules, and that seems to be exactly what happened. As she entered in a game where she didn't know how to play it, she didn't know the dangers that were possible. So she begins flirting with the woodcutter, Mr. Man, who you find out after you take his hat off is actually much older than your first impression is. And then they sit down and they drink beer together. And then I just have to comment that with the way that they shot that, really, and the music that they added, and the way that the screen faded out, the way that you find Carmen laying on the road afterwards, like I said in last video, really, really strong implications of what probably happened. And as terrible as it may sound, that is probably, or at least that's the way I'm feeling. I may be completely wrong, because this is the kind of game where you can make your own analysis and you can think what happened, whatever feels right to you. But to me, it felt like she definitely, something terrible really happened to her. Something really terrible happened to her. So I think I may have just lost sound. Not entirely sure, because suddenly sound just shut off. Let's Alright, no, we're good on sound. So, what I was saying was that I think that what my impression of what happened was reinforced by what we saw in the house afterwards. So, tons and tons of imagery of trees and wood, and then the X's, which we saw on the trees that he was cutting down. And, a lot of you may agree with me, but I thought that the house was probably the most violent house that we've been in thus far. With the, and I say that because I compared it to the one that we saw with Robin with the wolf, but I found Carmen's house to be more frightening, more unsettling, and even more violent than that, because Robin's wolf was actually a wolf, and Carmen's was a man. And not to say that all men are evil, but when I think about it, it makes me feel more uneasy, because animals follow their instinct. Wolves would be dangerous because that is their instinct, and you can kind of count on that. You have the expectation that that's what is to be expected of wolves. But when it concerns men, or by men I mean human, by human, you can't really have that expectations, because there can be a very good person, a very bad person. And as we found out, Cameron confronted a very bad person. And that's what makes it a little bit more frightening, is because you know, there's the trust factor, and was that person, should they have been trusted? And along that same line, is it just me, or did Carmen have like a complete lapse in judgment with that one? I mean, if you're in the middle of a completely foreboding, ominous, creepy, dark forest, and you come across a single, like, one man, like, in the middle of a campsite with an axe, chopping stuff down, do you go flirt with them and then have some beers? I mean, like, is it just me? Because it just seems like she, yeah, I think that was a little bit of bad judgment on her part. And maybe that kind of goes back to, again, her inexperience at that kind of game. She initiated the game with the flirting, I think, and she didn't, you know, she's too young to know better, or just to really be aware of the dangerous situation she might have been in. Anyway, to the house. I was really confused about what was going on in the house the entire time it was going on, so I went back and I watched the video over a couple times, and I realized that I was very confused at what sounds we were hearing, and you guys were probably like, no, those are clearly sex sounds, because I was saying, what is that? Is that, you know, is it barking? Is it screaming? What is that? Well, I had my sound turned down really low, or not really low, but kind of low while I was playing it, and I couldn't discern it over the sound of the sawing. But when I went back and listened to it again, yeah, I have to agree that it sounded very much like sex sounds to me. But I don't think that it was so clear as that every person would have gotten that. I think that one of the beauties of this game was shown in that instance, because you could have two separate people where one of them would say no, along with the sounds of the sawing and the chainsaw, combine that with the moaning, groaning sounds that you heard. That to me clearly was somebody being attacked or killed or you know, sawed apart or something. And then another person might be saying no, clearly with all the imagery and everything else, and considering what happened at the campsite and just Carmen's personality, those were clearly sex sounds. So I think that it's really up to the person how they perceive it. Did I just lose sound again? What the? Alright. Right, another thing I wanted to mention was a lot of the imagery that we were seeing in the house. The trees everywhere, the fire. Looking back at that again, I think that the chair on the mattresses, I think that was definitely a sexual reference. I think that really Carmen's scenario in general, her experiences through the forest, what happened at the campsite, and her house were all extremely sexually charged. And I think that was intended because of her age, and she was 17, and the whole idea of her coming into being a woman, and like I said earlier, beginning to enter in that game of you know, sexual behavior and activity and stuff like that. So, and also, I don't know if it's just me, but one of the first things that I thought of when I saw that stack of mattresses was the story of the princess with the pea, right? It's probably just me. The story of the princess with the pea, where if she really was a princess, then she would be able to feel a pea that was under 17 mattresses or 7 mattresses or something like that. And they were trying to decide if she really was a princess. And then the next morning she wakes up and she's like, oh, I had a horrible sleep. I could feel something under my mattress. And I don't know, it's probably not related whatsoever. Lastly, the scenes that we saw at the very end, the tree coming through the bed, I think that was another really powerful sexual image, if you consider the tree and you consider the bed. So you just kind of put those together, and it when you look at it that way, it becomes pretty clear. And then the flashes, I had to go watch those several times. I could discern 2 of the images that were being flashed across the screen at the very end, and one of them was the woodcutter, obviously, and the other one was Carmen looking up. And that's my timer saying that we are out of time for this little analysis section. I have to move on to my actual character, but I just wanted to say this. There's actually more images that can be discerned. One of them is Carmen on the ground, looking dead. The other one is the woodcutter chopping. The third one is the face of the woodcutter looking at you. And then the fourth one is actually, and quite curiously, a top-down picture of Carmen looking up at the camera. And I thought that was really, really interesting. It's you might call that a submissive position, since it's, and she looked like she was on her knees. Alright, honestly, I'm just throwing it down there. Throwing it down right now. It looked like she was on her knees. So go back, watch it again. You guys don't have the benefit of being able to slow motion through my videos like I did, but that's what it looked like to me. And it could be taken as either maybe a submissive position or, again, another sexual position. So let's be done with that. Let's move on to Scarlet, the eldest sister, and have some fun times. Okay guys, so I didn't want to waste your time going through that loading screen again. Here we are on the sister Scarlet. I'm going to do the first thing that I always do, which is just kind of make some comments about what she looks like. Right off the bat, extremely modest. That's what it looks like to me. She's got kind of this little, what do you call that thing? Is that a petticoat? I've heard the word petticoat, and I know it's an article of clothing that women wear. Is that a petticoat? It looks like just a small little sweater-looking thing. The way that she has her hair tied back, the headband pulled away from her face, the makeup really isn't extravagant. Just with the belt that's around her waist and not her hips. Looks like she might be wearing sweatpants. Looks extremely modest and conservative. And I mean conservative in a kind of personality type way, not in the political type way, because I wouldn't know that. You can't tell that. And okay, it's been a little bit since I played this game, so I'm just gonna check my settings real quick. Alright, all my settings look fine. I just double checked the video to make sure that sound settings are all swell, because I just got a new headset and just testing it out. Alright, so it looks like that is the icon showing us to the campsite, I would assume, since it's got a little fireplace in there. Can we interact with the bird? Ah, ah! Hello, bird! Hello, bird! Bird! You're not gonna do anything? You're just gonna... Can I kick it? I can't... Is this the tree? Is this the tree? Like the tree? No, it has leaves. The other tree didn't have leaves. Can I do anything? No? Okay. Did you hear that, guys? I heard giggling. You had to have heard it. I know that it's just me, but my volume is pretty dang loud, and I double checked it on your end, on the video end, and it's not, so it's obviously just me. But it's a little nerve-wracking when stuff like laughing children's kind of flutter by. Alright, well, let's get the show on the road, since I have about only a couple minutes left. So let's hurry up and make some observations. I wonder how the forest is going to look for Scarlet. It looks is it just me, or does it look a bit more misty, a bit more foggy? See those little white, little fluffy things? Were those there before? I can't really recall if they were or not. It's been a little bit since I played last. No, it's okay. It's definitely a little bit foggier. Let's head to I don't know if there's anything for us over here, but I want to make sure to get in at least one of our little areas before I have to end this video. Sorry I kind of lectured on a bit for a while, but I just thought that Carmen's needed a lot more description than the other ones, because maybe it was just me, but I was really confused, and it was not something that was straightforward. Is anybody here? Some people are just so... Some people are just so. They set up their tents and then run away. what happened here. Oh, Scarlet, if only you knew what happened here. If only you knew. You wouldn't want to know. It had nothing to do with your younger sister Carmen getting raped and then brutally butchered. Poor girl. Okay, so, I don't think there's really... Yeah, no, okay, we can't interact with this stuff. There's no reason for that. I'm not entirely sure what objects are here in this world for us to interact with as Scarlet, because I don't really recall seeing her face that many times in our journey, our travels. She's not going to do anything? Okay, just going to observe her pose. Her pose doesn't seem, okay, stop. Just so you know, guys, there is no backwards key. There's no backwards key in this game. You can't walk backwards. You have to physically turn yourself. Oh, that's my timer saying time is up. So, guess I'll go for a minute more. I don't understand people who think nature is lovely. What? It's messy, and it smells, and it makes you get lost. Alright, right off the bat, I'm getting the distinct impression that Scarlet is a very practical person. She seems very practical. Kind of doesn't see the need for unnecessary things. And I may be completely way off, but that's kind of what I'm just inferring from what we've seen so far. Can you say anything about this? You know, it'd be really, really interesting. It would be really great. Oh man, that creaking sound is creepy. If there was blood on the axe, that would be really creepy and just so, it'd be so, I don't know, fitting. Alright guys, so I am actually way out of time. Sorry that we didn't get to explore too much on Scarlet, but when we come back, we're going to go through our basket of memories. Oh god, there's Carmen. Look at her. That's probably like one of the saddest poses that I've seen them have after they've interacted with their wolf. Anyway, I will see you next time on Let's Play the Path. I have been RoseErifnosi. Thanks for joining me.